entrepreneur or a corporate professional, juggling countless responsibilities. You're managing your business, you're advancing your career, you are serving in different roles in your communities, and somehow still attempting to be everything to everyone that you care about. Now, this is a scenario that many of you may find yourselves into. You've become a master at prioritizing your business, your career, your family, all while doing this at the expense of your own well-being. And it doesn't help that we live in a world that glorifies being busy and measures our success by the volume of our achievements. And in all of this, you've somehow convinced yourself that a fleeting moment of relaxation here or there is sufficient to rejuvenate you and keep you going. But does it really? Hi, I am Simoneese and I am a self-care and mindset coach. And today I'll be sharing with you how self-care can become your superpower. Developing a self-care mindset that will help you to thrive both personally and professionally so that you can become a happier, healthier, and more productive version of you. But before we delve into that today, I want you to ask yourself this one question. What good is it if I keep working 24/7 to achieve more money, more achievements, more letters behind my name, if I am not well enough to enjoy it in the long run? Because of sickness, or perhaps even worse, death. Now, that may sound a little bit morbid, but it is a reality. And so I want us to be clear on the fact that self-care is a fundamental necessity. And if we're able to tap into that, if we're able to understand that, then we can really tap into the superpower that it is. Now, the first part of developing a self-care mindset is understanding that you are the most critical component in the equation of life. You are the highest priority. There's nothing that's more important, and you have to become your biggest advocate. You have to know when things are outside of your capacity and know that you don't have to go above and beyond all the time. So that's what we're going to be looking at. Because at the cornerstone of productivity and fulfillment is your well-being, your emotional well-being, your mental well-being, your physical well-being. Because if you're not healthy enough to work, then nothing works. So the first one that I want to discuss is what I call being brilliant at the basics. Now, if you know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you'll know that at the base, he says there are some basic physiological things that you must achieve before you can even concern yourself with anything else on the hierarchy. Now, with self-care, being brilliant at the basics means that you have to pay attention to how you eat. You want to make sure you're eating well. Pay attention to your sleep. Make sure you're getting adequate sleep. And you also have to take care of your body. Exercise. Move your body. Now, this is important because more than 80% of diseases that impact us are actually lifestyle diseases, which means that it stems from how we feed our bodies, the lack of exercise, and the lack of sleep. These are important physiological functions that we must ensure that we are doing well. So being brilliant at the basics is key to activating your self-care superpower. I don't know about y'all, but when I don't get enough sleep, I am not the best person to hang around. And when you don't eat well, your body, it breaks down the cells in your body. You're fatigued. All sorts of things are going on. You're not as aware as you should be. You're not alert. So it's important that we're brilliant at the basics. The second thing is we must carve time out for relaxation and rejuvenation. Now, growing up, we would have heard that all work and no play makes Jill a dull girl or makes Jack a dull boy. So we don't want to be dull people. We want to be sharp people who are feeling happy, who are joyful, who are aware of what's happening around us. And so rest rest, relaxation, and rejuvenation are actually key things that we need to carve time out for. So think of yourself as a car. It doesn't matter if you give it the best fuel. It doesn't matter if you clean it every day and polish it. You still have to take it to get servicing, or else over time it becomes so sluggish, it becomes slow until eventually it stops working. Same thing with our body. We have to take time out to create the relaxation, the rejuvenation. That is how our mind, that's how our emotions are recharged. That's how we get to reconnect with ourselves. And if you can go ahead and look it up. There are 7 types of rest, and they're all important. You need spiritual rest, you need creative rest, you need sensory rest. It's an interesting thing. And I believe that if we carve more time out to do these things, then we are really activating our self-care superpower. Now, the final thing I want to share with you is what I call deep introspection. Now, this is where you sit and you ask yourself, what result do I want to achieve? And who do I need to become to achieve that? Now, that's a 2-part question. And the first part of it, what it does, it requires you to really look deep inside. And you'll have to now identify your core values, your truth, the things that are important to you. What are priorities? What is that legacy that you want to leave? And the who you need to become requires you now to reassess who you are right now and see the areas that you need to be more diligent in carving out so that you can actually achieve those results. And a big part of doing that is also recognizing the boundaries that you need to develop, the boundaries that you need to enforce, and it's not just about saying no to things that don't serve you. It's also about saying yes to things that will refuel you, yes to things that will set your soul on fire. So boundaries are very important in your self-care journey. Now, a part of even asking yourself those questions will make you sit and wonder what kind of environment is conducive to these results. Who do I need to align myself with to be able to achieve these results? And so while this is not enough time, because there's so much more to unpack around those 3 fundamental truths, I want to invite you to connect with me on social media to learn more at the Self-Care Bar Jamaica on all platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok. And you can also connect with me via my website at www.tsbja.com and join our community. Hi, I am Simoneese Williams, here to taking better care of ourselves so that we can be better humans, we can be better partners, and we can be better leaders. All right.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Jessica Holly. I am your extreme execution coach and author of the Write the Vision Journal and Everybody Can't Go. Today, I'm talking to you guys about your emotional well-being and how that's affected by setting boundaries, whether it is setting boundaries or the lack of setting boundaries and the impacts on your emotional health. And as always, remember, everybody can't go. So when we're moving into talking about our growth, whether that is our personal or professional growth, we are partaking and choosing to participate in personal development type sessions. So these are any formalized actions or perhaps sometimes informal where you are learning tools, techniques, tips, and different things that you can then employ to experience personal growth. As a result of that personal growth, you will start to show up in the world different for other people. Other people will start to experience you differently. I like to call it they're experiencing you 2.0. So we'll notice that every time there's an iOS upgrade, everybody's excited about it. oh my gosh, all these great things are coming up. Did you see the new feature that popped up that came on our phones? It updated overnight. Oh my gosh, you didn't get the update? And it's always this nice little buzz that we get the next day. If only the people in our lives had the same type of happy buzz, the same positive reaction when it comes to every time we make an upgrade to ourselves, our behaviors, our communication styles, things that we're doing in our career, at work, and in any other aspect of our lives. As we're making these upgrades to ourselves and becoming the best possible version of ourselves that we can be, we will be making those minor tweaks and changes as we go along. A part of what we need as we're moving forward is boundaries. Now, a lot of times you may hear people speaking about boundaries and it's like, boundaries are so that you can control what other people do, so that you can assert your will. Boundaries aren't about control. Boundaries are about you. So it's important to set these boundaries so that you're able to protect both your mental and emotional wellness and your mental and emotional health, because those boundaries are created for you to decide what type of behavior you will or will not tolerate or accept from others. Things that have to be considered when you're making these boundaries or creating these boundaries are: what goals or aspirations do you have ahead of you that you're trying to accomplish? An easy example would be in the financial space. When you're looking at trying to save up for a big event, a big life event, something like, a baby is on the way, or we're saving up to purchase a home. Something like that would involve a bit less time being spent doing social activities that could be costing extra money. You may find other places in your budget to cut back. If that is the case, a boundary that you would need to set with those that you spend a lot of time with would be, you would share that goal out. Hey, we're looking at purchasing a home in the next 6 to 18 months, possibly even next 60 months to 2 years. So with that being said, we won't be participating in as many activities, going out, spending extra money so that we can put those funds away in a savings account for the down payment for our new home. With that being the new boundary that you set and properly communicated to those that you spend the most time around, you could make a healthy expectation that if there is some type of vacation, some lavish dinner, something that's a bit more expensive, or even those Friday nights that you spend out, a necessary adjustment could be spending some of those Friday nights doing things that are a bit more cost effective for you so that you're able to squirrel away those amounts of money in increments over time. Also, that would show that you have the support and other people that you're spending a lot of your time with. Not only do they support you and your future goal, but they also support your plan and ways to get there. That's not to say that someone else is required to help you along the way, that they're required to give toward your cause, but just respect the boundary that you set with how you will be spending your time and funds for the coming and near future so that you're able to accomplish that goal. When you're setting these boundaries, you want to be sure to take steps to set healthy boundaries so that you're able to maintain that new growth that you made as a result of participating in conferences, courses, workshops, masterminds, so that you are able to get that personal development in that formalized setting. And when you chose the different tools and techniques that you would employ in your own life so that you could achieve that personal growth, setting boundaries is a part of the way that you maintain that growth that you were able to experience and that you were able to set forth in your life. As you're starting to move forward and you're looking at maintaining, perhaps you chose 1 to 2 things that you were going to employ immediately as a part of your personal growth journey. In order to build on those things and create new habits in your life and experience that you 2.0 that I talked about a little earlier, you'll need to maintain. As a part of maintenance, those boundaries are needed so that it is less difficult for you to make those changes, sustain those changes, and maintain those changes as a positive new direction that you're taking on your life's journey. These boundaries that you have set, remember, they are for you. They're not to control others. So a part of setting those healthy boundaries is making sure that the boundaries are things that you set in place so that if someone else has violated that boundary, you are willing to take a step back, communicate in a healthy way, and if the end all be all, if you get to the end of that and your boundaries cannot be respected, once you have created healthy boundaries, effectively communicated those boundaries, it is up to you to enforce them. And it may come to a space where you get to that everybody can't go factor, where you may be required to stop communication for a specific amount of time or cut off communication all the way in order to maintain that emotional well-being for yourself as you're moving forward. Another thing that I'd like to remind you, these boundaries that I'm having you to set, boundaries are a part of your self-care. When we're talking about self-care for our emotional wellness and well-being, self-care is not a luxury item. It's not something that has to be expensive. It doesn't have to be only set aside for Saturdays. Your self-care is something that you can do with yourself every single day. Prior to having a super stressful day, or even if you had a moderately stressful day, you should have things that are already set in place so that you're able to protect the choices that you've made for your life, as well as protect your peace in ways that are both healthy for you and that are also healthy for those around you. So when we're looking at setting those boundaries, we also have to remember that is a part of a self-care routine. And with self-care being something that you should employ every day, there will be some boundaries that you need to set in place that those things will be stuck like glue every single day so that you're able to protect the choices that you've made and move forward without the additional stress of being questioned, about being sent in a different direction than one that is in alignment with what you've chosen as your next set of goals, building toward your vision. And then we also want to make sure that we aren't second guessing ourselves or flip-flopping back and forth and spending valuable energy that should be put toward your vision, building out your goals, and making sure that those things are strategically in alignment so that you can accomplish them and put the energy toward that, as opposed to continuously going on that cycle of questioning yourself, revisiting, well, such and such said that I should take this route. If you know that it's not in alignment, you cut it off right there. That in itself is a boundary, and that is to protect you, to protect your emotional health, and also to protect your mental and emotional well-being. So those are a couple of simple steps that you can go ahead and employ. You can start doing those right now today. As soon as you're done watching this recording, you will be able to employ some of these things so that you're able to do just one or two extra small things there so that you can practice self-care and practice some positive emotional well-being. And hopefully these tips have been helpful for you with talking about self-care every day and doing that through setting those boundaries that you need. And at the end of the day, it's okay that everybody can't go with you. If you'd like to check out more free tips, resources, and you'd like to dive in a bit deeper and find out more about why everybody can't go, you can visit us at www.everybodycan'tgo2.com. And you can follow us on socials on Instagram at everybodycan'tgo2. And you can also find us on YouTube at Everybody Can't Go Convos.
Greetings. My name is Keisha Allen, and if you are ready to cultivate more energy and less stress in your life, then you are in the right session. Ask yourself if your workload is impacting your well-being. Think about if you wake up most mornings feeling tired. Are you finding that your productivity levels have declined at work or even at home? If you answer yes to any of these questions, then I want you to know that you are not alone. 89% of working adults complain about stress, and there are others who also complain about burnout and insomnia. I myself have experienced feeling overworked and overwhelmed from stress. Not only am I a mother of two, I work a full-time job. I'm an entrepreneur and an owner of two businesses. I'm an author and also an energy guide and coach. And with all of these responsibilities, I had to find ways to balance my life and reduce my stress. And through this, I decided to spend my energy empowering women who are overworked and overwhelmed to create healthy habits that reduce stress, restore their energy levels, and improve their physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well being. This is a passion of mine because, everyone has jobs to do and everyone has stress. But as women, we tend to have a hidden workload that causes us additional stress. So, what am I talking about? We are most times the managers of our households. And this means that we provide emotional support to others. We have to worry about the simple things like what's for dinner. We have to keep track of other people's appointments. We have to act as a chauffeur, taking our children to different extracurricular activities. We need to keep track of what special day it is at school, right? Is it pajama day or picture day? Sometimes we even have aging parents that we have to care for as well. And we find ourselves often putting everyone and everything else before ourselves. And this added stress has a negative impact on our overall well being. And so we have to learn to pay attention to the warning signs that our body gives us when we're undergoing constant stress. And some of these may include being indecisive, just feeling lethargic and not having much energy all the time, noticing changes to your eating habits, also your sleeping habits. Maybe you're really on edge or you're jumpy or you're overreacting to certain situations. These are all warning signs. And if we don't check them, it can lead to burnout. And I often compare burnout to that of a car breaking down on the side of the road, because often a car gives us some warning signs. It might be a red light flashing on your dashboard, right? You might find that there's a noise that you're ignoring. And once we, don't pay attention and get things fixed, what happens? The car breaks down on the side of the road and then you're stranded or you can't get to where you need to go. Same thing happens when we ignore the warning signs that our bodies give us, right? We end up burning out and then we can't do the things that we need to do. And so I encourage people to treat their energy like we treat our bank accounts. And so when we see our balance getting low, we start to be intentional about, making sure we're not spending as much money or putting more deposits into our account so that we can bring it back to a healthy balance. Same thing with our cell phones, right? We carry portable chargers or regular chargers around just to ensure that that battery stays topped up. So why don't we treat our energy the same way and make sure we start to do things to keep our energy levels higher? Because what I encourage people to do is make a list and divide it into two columns. And then on one side, just list all the things in your life that you do that withdraw your energy or break down your energy. Then make another list of the things that you do that actually restore your energy or add energy to you. And then once you do that, you'll notice that most times there are more items on the energy withdrawal side. And so we need to make sure that we are managing this energy, because if not, we are going to lead ourselves into an energy crisis. Now, I do have a free gift. There's a free energy audit and a free energy deposit ideas PDF that you can download from my Linktree Love and Light Empowerment account. And what this does, it will give you a self-assessment that you can do to determine which areas of your life, your physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, that you are having energy deficiencies in, or where you are receiving the most stress. And then the energy deposit ideas give you tips for things that you can do on a daily basis to help to balance that energy bank account or to restore your energy. So check that out. And if we don't start to manage our energy, we're going to find that over time, you start to become exhausted, unproductive, maybe even resentful. And it can eventually lead to physical or mental illness, and we don't want that to happen. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, one thing you can do is to practice the 5 Ds. And that means to make a list and look at the things that are on your plate and decide what can you drop, what is it that you can delay, what can you delegate to someone else or others. Stop and declutter, because when you have a lot of mental clutter, it shows up in your space and vice versa. And then once you've done the first 4, drop, delay, delegate, and declutter, you have a shorter list of things that you have to do, and you'll find that you're feeling less stressed. So please remember to manage your energy, because energy is renewable. So if we start to become intentional about incorporating daily and weekly habits that are healthy, that can help us to restore our energy and boost our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. My energy formula will also help with this. And it's easy to remember using my energy acronym. So think about your exercise, N for nature, second E for eating well, R for rest and reset, G, ground and get your mind right, and Y, you come first, because self-care is a must. So if you exercise, you want to make sure that you are exercising 20 minutes, a couple of times a week, but ensure that you are doing exercises that you enjoy, because this will help you with consistency. Connect with nature, get outside, put your feet in the grass, take in some sun. And if you live in a climate where it's not always possible to be outside, get some plants and bring them into your home. Bring nature to you. Make sure you're eating well, okay? So I encourage people to eat the rainbow, fruits and vegetables that are the color of the rainbow, because these naturally give you the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that your body needs. And also drink plenty of water. Make sure you're getting sufficient rest and make sure it's quality. Research shows that we get our best sleep in silence and in darkness, because in this state, our body is best able to recharge and renew. Ground yourself. Get your mind right. Practice prayer and meditation, because they go hand in hand. One is speaking to the Creator, giving gratitude and asking for the things you want, and the other is pausing and being still so that you can receive the messages that are being sent back to you. And finally, you have to prioritize your self-care, because if you don't pour into your own cup, you can't be your best self for whoever else you need to be there for, or whatever else you need to be there for. So remember that if you use my energy formula, it is going to help you to get to a place of ease and flow. Because if we're always in a stress state, it's going to lead us to a state of dis-ease, which eventually brings us to disease. And we don't want to have different diseases to come up in our lives. So always focus on changing your habits, changing your energy, because in turn, that's going to change your life. For more information and for the free energy audit and energy deposit ideas, visit my Linktree Love and Light Empowerment account. You can follow me on Instagram at Keisha Empowers, on Facebook at Keisha Allen Smith. You can always also email me at keishaempowers@gmail.com. Thank you for joining this session.
Hi, my name is KBM Brown, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm currently residing in Snellville, Georgia, but I'm originally from the Bronx, New York. I went to school at Lemoyne College in Syracuse, where I received my bachelor's, and then I went to Adelphi University, where I received my master's in social work. I currently have my LCSW, where I received that in Georgia in 2016. So I've been practicing as a clinical social worker for almost 10 years. I am affiliated with such organizations such as Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, as well as the Counseling Brothers of Atlanta, which is a counseling organization in Atlanta of African American counselors. All of our own practice, but here just to help out minority demographics. I specialize in treating couples. I specialize in briefings. I specialize in one-on-one therapy. Love working with ADHD and anxiety clients. And I really specialize in claims and billing, as I found that as a passion. Throughout my work, I have really become to understand the importance of setting boundaries. And that's what my presentation is going to be about. It's entitled Understanding Boundaries, because in order for us to understand and properly set boundaries, we have to make sure that we have a functional definition that works. The definition that I incorporate into my presentation or into this presentation is to let folks know that boundaries are for them. Boundaries are not for other people. It's a common mistake that we sometimes make and say, I'm going to set this for them and I'm going to set this boundary to see what they do. No, boundaries are for us. Boundaries are things that we do to tell us how to operate. If somebody acts within the boundaries that we set, then we respond appropriately. We respond peacefully. We respond in a good manner. If people respond to boundaries that we set in a negative way, then it takes us out of whack. It messes up our self-care aspects and it provides a level of stress. Now, my example is thinking about like when you had your parents or a grandparent who probably had the plastic on the couch, right? Now, you know you don't go in that room. That's the boundary. You go in that room and you're going to have an argument, a problem, or you're going to get in trouble. If you go in that room and you spilled food there and you got in trouble, you knew, I can't go back in there. The boundary's been set. But if you go back in there and you spilled food and nothing happened, then you know these boundaries are pretty loose. Think about boundaries such as no shoes in the house. If you don't set that boundary when people come in, then they'll continue to walk all over your home with shoes. And if you stop them right at the door and say, hey, take off your shoes, then they'll know the next time that they come that shoes are not allowed. So again, boundaries are for the individual, not the other person who's receiving it. Once we set boundaries and know how to set them appropriately, know how to communicate them appropriately and effectively, other individuals will definitely follow. So in this training, in this presentation, individuals are going to learn how to communicate effectively and understand how they communicate. What's their communication style? Are they passive, passive-aggressive, assertive, or just aggressive, right? We can't have aggressive communication if we're going to make sure that we have effectively communicated our boundaries. We want people to be able to understand us. We can't be passive. We can't be passive-aggressive. We have to use assertive communication. Now, when you are assertive, it's a compromise. It's a push and pull. And during that time, we kind of explain what we want, but also we kind of hear what somebody else is saying when we say that this is a boundary that I've set for myself. Now, realistically, we have to understand, will people be able to fall in line with the boundaries that we set? We can't expect everyone to fall in line with our boundaries. Sometimes our expectations have to be realistic, right? So when we understand how to set boundaries, we understand how to set realistic boundaries that don't cause us additional stress because people don't follow through. Some people will not respect the boundaries, and you will have to decide what you will do after that. Continue to interact, deal, and socialize with them and stress yourself out, or set boundaries that allow yourself to free yourself, remove yourself, and maintain positive self-care values, right? Self-care is an important part of boundary setting. We tell ourselves what we will allow, what we won't allow, and how we'll set that volume, how we'll set that threshold. So understanding boundaries and setting effective boundaries and communicating effectively are all aspects of really molding and shaping your self-care values, molding and shaping your own personal values, molding and shaping yourself as an individual. Understanding your boundaries or understanding how to set appropriate goals and set them realistically and make sure that your expectations do fall within reality. Once again, my name is Kavian Brown. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I can be reached or followed through my company website at Saving Ourselves, which is SOS Counseling and Consultation Group. The website is sosccg.com. Also, you can find me there on Facebook or on Instagram. If you're looking to just reach me directly, please contact me through my email, kbrown@sosccg.com. Understand your boundaries, learn about boundaries, set effective boundaries, and be at peace. Have a great day and look forward to presenting. Bye.
Are you ready to share your message with the world? Introducing PitchDB, the all-in-one platform revolutionizing the way speakers connect with podcasts, conferences, and media outlets. With access to over 3 million platforms, finding your perfect speaking opportunity has never been easier. Our AI integrations create personalized bios and pitches, setting you apart from the crowd. Join the movement of speakers taking the world stage today. Join now at pitchdb.com.
Hello, I am Lilisa J. Williams, the founder and president of International Success Coaching, here to talk to you about the steps to emotional wellness. Well, we hear a lot about mental health, physical wellness, and some people are even talking about financial wellness. But no matter what area of wellness you talk about, emotional wellness should be and is at the heart of wellness. Why? Because with everything we do and everything that we go through, we will have feelings and, we will just have a particular mood about ourselves. So tell me, have you ever found yourself with any of these feelings? Fearfulness, loneliness, anger, frustration, feeling as though you're inadequate or helpless. How about feeling sad or stressed? Well, if you're like me, you're not only raising one hand, you're raising both hands and probably both of your feet as well. Well, absolutely, as leaders, it is important, more so probably than anyone else, that we really understand our emotional well-being and that we develop our emotional well-being. So first, let's look at what are we talking about when we talk about emotional well-being. We are talking about the ability to be able to handle life's situations that bring about some of those things that we listed before. We would call them a debilitating emotional behavior. Sometimes emptiness. You ever been so empty where you just wanted to give up? How about fear? Have you ever been so fearful of something that it held you up from taking advantage of some great opportunity, only to find out later on in life that you could have operated despite of your fear? Or what about guilt? Feeling guilty about something that happened maybe a short time ago or a long time ago or even longer than that. So these are the types of behaviors that happen all the time that come up for us. And so it's not so much that we will have these feelings or we will end up in these various modes. But emotional wellness has to do with how we handle it. How do we come through it? How do we make the best of these situations? And not just so that we are surviving, but so that we are actually thriving. And it took my own experiences with each and every last one of these. But I'm just going to focus on one because of the timing. And that was the feeling of guilt. I tell you, it really takes my breath away, even now when I mention it. Feeling guilty about mistakes I had made as a teenager, such as making the poor decision to drop out of high school. Now, absolutely, that was a mental situation. That was a mental feeling. However, it was my emotions that led me to making that bad decision. So that right there shows you the connection between our emotional wellness and our mental wellness. So mental might be more about making decisions. It's about what we think, having that rational thinking. Certainly it wasn't a rational thought to drop out of high school. And yet I was able to eventually go back to school. But it wasn't until I had done the work of healing from my emotional traumas, healing from the feelings of helplessness. I really felt that I couldn't help myself in order to do better in school, or I couldn't help myself overcome some of the setbacks in life. But then I began to pick myself up. I began to look at my life and decide for myself, what do you want to do? How do you want to end this up? Where do you want to end up? It was about making some plans. And so I did. I made a plan to go back to school. And so I ended up going to college in my 30s and earning a college degree. And it was while I was in college, I took courses like psychology and group dynamics and sociology and even algebra. Even that course allowed me to see the power of problem solving. So I want to say that when it comes to steps, when we talk about what are the steps, and I want to give them to you. So these are steps that I developed, but they are absolutely in line with what psychologists and sociologists and other experts in the field of social development and wellness would agree with. And so these steps, and I want to give them to you, and I really, really hope that you are able to see the benefits. And I'm going to talk about a couple of the benefits that you will get from applying these 8 steps, and there's 8 of them. So these are the steps that you can follow to develop your emotional wellness. Well, the first step is choosing to change. That's right. You have to see that where you are is not necessarily where you want to be. And then you have to have a vision for where you want to go. And that is one of the first steps. The second step is you want to take advantage of spending that lonesome time, or spending the time to yourself, or spending time by yourself, with yourself, to really think about what you want. Where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself? These can lead to establishing your emotional well-being. Because remember, emotional wellness is about you, how you overcome the tragedies, the traumas, the setbacks of your life. It's about overcoming them. It's about moving forward, and it's about having the ability to pick up, start over, and to keep going. And so the other steps are being able to speak positively. That's right. Speak positively to yourself. Say the positive things. Positivity also has a great impact on your physical health. It can also alleviate some debilitating stress. Stress can be good because it can give us energy, but at the same time, if we overdo stress, it could lead to things like depression, anxiety. And then also you want to be able to, another step is you want to be able to make each step solid. And that's about having that plan, writing it down. When you write something down, that puts it into a solid action. So now you can take it and run with it or go back and read it again. The next step is to build solid relationships. Emotional well people, they know how to build solid relationships. They know how to step in when they should. They know how to step back when they should not. They know how to offer comfort and support and empathy where they should in the various relationships that they're in. So you want to build those solid relationships in your family, in your home, in your maybe with your spouse or significant other, and certainly in your workplace and your professional life. Another step to building and enhancing your emotional wellness and developing your emotional wellness is the ability to develop the leader within. That means that you have the strength and the wherewithal to be more resilient, that you are able to pick yourself up and to keep going over every trauma and every tragedy that may be trying to happen in your life. At the same time, you want to be able to heal yourself from any emotional trauma that you may have. Now remember, emotional wellness, similar to mental wellness and mental health, but remember, mental health may be more about making the right decisions, thinking in a more rational way. But when it comes to emotional wellness, it's more about how we feel. What's our mood? I mean, we understand that we're going to have down days. We understand that tragedies will happen and they will impact us and affect us in some kind of way. But it's not about so much what happens to us, but more about our reaction to what has happened. So I want to thank you for joining me for this talk on steps to developing your emotional wellness.
Walter Williams, founder, success coach, and poet of Deep Discussion Enterprises. Thank you, Brian and Ron, for allowing me to be a part of this incredible Health and Wellness Summit. And congratulations to all of my fellow speakers who were selected. Continue to use your voices as sources of inspiration and uplifting to all of those that are around you. Today, I'm going to talk to you about resisting the enemies of growth. Experiencing growth plays a huge part in our health and our wellness. When we experience growth, we feel better about ourselves. We feel better about life. We take better care of ourselves. And honestly, the only way you can experience growth is by having good health. But when you allow the enemies of growth to get in the way, you start to experience issues with your health, which prevents you from experiencing growth. So what are those 4 enemies of growth, you ask? Well, I'm gonna keep you a little bit suspense before I share those enemies of growth. First, we're going to talk about 3 questions that I want you to think about while I'm sharing this with you. The first is, how would you define growth and what does it look like to you? The second, what are some factors that get in the way of you experiencing growth? And lastly, when you're in your pursuit of growth and things aren't progressing the way you want them to progress, what feelings do you carry? Do you feel discouraged? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel frustrated? What feelings do you carry and how do you overcome those? Now, the moment you was waiting for, those enemies of growth. Those 4 enemies are, and I'm going to give you the 4 and then I'm going to give you the definitions of them. They are doubt, worry, arrogance, and complacency. Doubt is a negative influence that works against your mind, tempting to persuade you that you are not adequate. Worry is the stress that comes from circumstances that you have little to no control over. And arrogance is a force that affects your mindset, making you think that you are superior and above the tasks that are required or expected of you. And lastly is complacency, which is an instance of usually unaware or uninformed self-satisfaction. Doubt, for example, is when you go to apply for a job and it's a job that you really want. You've been wanting this job for a while. You like everything about it, but you only have 8 of the 10 requirements. So you decide not to apply. When you allow doubt to creep in, you not only prevent yourself from having an opportunity to experience growth, but you prevent yourself from having an opportunity to learn and to find ways to make yourself better. Sometimes we have to be told no a few times before we're told yes, but we aren't given the opportunity to experience those no's to get closer to a yes because we allow doubt to creep in and prevent us from experiencing that step that is required. The next with worry. Now, my fellow speakers, you can attest to this, I'm sure. If not, I commend you and we need to have a talk. When it comes to worry, we as speakers sometimes allow ourselves to worry about how our message is being received as opposed to how it's being delivered. If we're standing in front of an audience of 50 people and our message is not received the way we want it to be received by 10 people, we feel like we're failing. At least I know I have. And we can't allow that to happen because then we start to worry about things that we can't control. We can't control how our message is being received. We can only control how it's being delivered. And when you worry about how it's being received, you take away the impact and the power that its delivery can possibly have on those that are listening and watching. Arrogance is a bit of a tricky one, but it's one that I really feel needs to be shared and need to be understood and learned. When we allow arrogance to get in the way of our growth, we again avoid those opportunities to be told no because we think that we should be told yes right away. A prime example for when I used to be a loan underwriter with a bank, I wanted to get in management so bad. I wanted to be a leader of people so bad because I had my master's degree in here. I'm thinking it's time for me to be in charge of something, to have subordinates. So I got my master's and I went ahead and applied for almost everything that said manager next to it. So I got a phone call for a management opportunity, but lo and behold, it was a management opportunity for a warehouse. Now it was FedEx. So I'm thinking I'm going to be in a FedEx corporate facility or something. No, they put me in a warehouse. So I was lifting boxes just like those that I was responsible for managing because I put the cart before the horse. I thought that because I have a master's degree, I'm ready to manage. But if I was ready to manage, I would have done a better job of reading the job description. And complacency. Now, this one is almost like arrogance, but the difference is complacency is more so about your behaviors and your actions as opposed to your mindset and your attitude. With complacency, you worry more about being comfortable than you do about being impactful. And the reason I say that is because when you don't want to step out of your comfort zone, you subconsciously, you're ignoring the opportunity to be an impact to those that are around you. You can't impact others without experiencing a little bit of not being comfortable. You have to get out of your comfort zone to be a leader, to be impactful, to experience growth. And growth is not going to be experienced in comfortable places. So when we get complacent, we stay still. We stay where it's comfortable because we either don't want to experience growth or we think that growth is going to come to us and we don't have to go after growth. So I just gave you a few pointers there, but what I will say is the 2 biggest caveats to defeating and resisting those enemies of growth are having a willingness to learn and practicing humility. When you have a willingness to learn, you're pursuing and going about your journey with every experience as an opportunity for you to take something away to grow closer and closer to your ultimate goal. And with humility, you recognize your flaws. You recognize that there are things that you have to work on and that you have to treat and take care of so that you can get closer and closer to that goal. When we are arrogant, when we're doubtful and worried and complacent, we hinder our opportunity to experience growth because we don't show a willingness to learn, nor do we practice humility in our journeys or in our pursuit of growth. So to tie all of this together with the Health and Wellness Summit and my message of resisting the enemies of growth, I found a perfect quote that was quoted by William S. Burroughs, an American writer and visual artist, who said, "When you stop growing, you start dying." So that brings it all together. If you're not attempting or trying to pursue growth, then you're just growing closer and closer to death. And to experience a healthy lifestyle, you have to be willing to grow. And if you're not willing to grow, then those enemies are going to come and attack you. And you have to be willing to learn and to practice humility in all facets and all parts of your journey. Thank you so much for taking the time to hear my message about resisting the enemies of growth. If you like to work with and connect with Deep Discussion, if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast or just have some kind of interaction with me, please feel free to visit my website, www.deepdiscussion.org, or you can email me at deepdiscussion13@gmail.com. I can also be contacted via phone at 443-356-6096, and I'm on all social media platforms as Deep Discussion. Thank you so much. I look forward to working with you, and let's help make this world a much more stronger, healthier, and happier place. Take care, and I wish you all the best.
Greetings, my name is Sheila Spencer, and we're going to go on a self-care journey, recharging spirit, reviving body, and renewing soul. I want to begin by invoking the wise words of Audre Lorde. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. Self-care in and of itself is a revolutionary act. My definition of self-care is that self-care is the assignment that recharges my spirit, revives my body, and renews my soul. Bringing this into alignment makes me spiritually, physically, and mentally whole. Self-care is an experience that embodies my spirit, it embodies my body, and it embodies my mind. Self-care is holistic. So when we look at self-care, it's the unity factor. We need to look at things that are recharging our spirit, that are reviving our body, and that are renewing our soul. Self-care is the embodiment of all of these parts of who we are. Another thing about self-care in and of itself is a revolutionary act because it is countercultural and it resists the notion that our society has about 24-hour grinding, that we have to be on the go. One of the things that I say so often is that exhaustion as a badge of honor is something that I no longer choose to wear. The wear and tear that it takes on my spirit, my mind, and my body is a burden that I will no longer bear. We have to resist the notion of feeling guilty about self-care. We have to resist the notion that we need to be exhausted and wearing it as a badge of honor. We have to resist this notion about permanently being a member of Team No Sleep. Self-care is a revolutionary act. It is an act of resistance, and we have to proclaim it. Self-care is not a reward. Self-care should be a part of the regular rhythm of our lives. I want to give you this reminder. This is a message that I want all of us to read together. I'm going to count to 3, and we're going to read it together. I'm going to count to 3, and after I count to 3, we're going to read this together. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. You are already worthy of rest. Rest is your divine right, period. Let that be your reminder. So let's look at some tangible ways that we can recharge spirit, revive body, and renew our soul. Let's look and remember this. Tricia Hersey, who is the Nat Bishop, says that we are simply resting because it is our divine right to do so. Resting isn't an afterthought, but a basic part of being human. We must believe that we are worthy of rest. We are called human beings, not human doings. So instead of spending so much time worrying about things to do, we need to find time just to be. Recharging your spirit. There are so many ways that we can recharge our spirit. One of the ways is through meditation, through prayer, taking time in the morning just to be still. Gratitude journaling, taking time to write what you're grateful for, no matter how big or how small. Research has shown that when we take the time to focus on what we are grateful for, it is a recharge for our spirit, it energizes our day, and it shifts our mindset. A nature connection. Nature is all around us. I love water, beaches, rivers, perhaps walking in a local park. And if you're in the winter season, you can actually look at videos of those nature scenes that relax you. And also the gift of community. We were not created to go through our lives alone. Community is so important. Being around people who will pour into you and people that you can also pour into. Community is such a big part of our spirit connection. For reviving our body, I say that if the body is my temple, then movement is the prayer. Take time to stretch. Take time to walk. Take time to dance. Take time to move. When we take time to move, we need to be grateful for this body. I tell people all the time that this body carried us through a pandemic. This body has brought us through so much. Take care and be grateful for the body that you have. Balanced nutrition, a well-balanced diet, nourishes our body and energizes us. And as I mentioned earlier, I am no longer a member of Team No Sleep. Take time to sleep. Just as you make sure that your phone is recharged, you make sure that when you see your phone going low on the bars, you make sure that you charge it up. We need to treat our body like we treat our phone. We need to make sure that we charge up our body. And one of the ways that revive our body is through sleep and rest. Take time to rest. It will energize you and prepare you for all the things ahead. When we look at renewing our mind, we look at mindfulness practices. It means affirmations, saying positive affirmations, speaking life, being around life-giving situations. Another part of that is setting boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. Boundaries are doors that simply show people where the door is. When you set boundaries, you guard yourself and you show other people how to treat you. Be a lifelong learner. Take time to always sharpen your mind, find new opportunities, challenge your mind, keep your mind sharp. And we need to be careful about what we surround ourselves with. We need to be careful of the words that come out of our mouths. We need to make sure that we speak life. Some additional self-care tips. Start small. Don't take a 2-week vacation. Set your phone timer for 5 minutes. 5 minutes where you don't look at social media. You don't answer your phone. You're not looking at a computer. You're taking time to be still. Start small. You won't start at all until you start small. Then gradually build it up. Learn to delegate tasks. Delegation. When you delegate, You empower other people to walk in their gifts. And also, when you delegate, it really has you answer the question, what's more important, getting the task done or getting the task done by you? Think about it. Using technology wisely. Don't let the phone be the first thing we reach for in the morning. Take time to be still. There are amazing apps that have affirmations. There are amazing apps that assist with do not disturb notifications. There are apps that will shut down your social media apps for a period of time. Use technology to your advantage. And don't let the phone be the first thing you reach for in the morning. Scrolling takes hours from our day. Seek support. Seek support, seek a community, seek friends, seek therapists, mental health support groups. And it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to ask for help when you are feeling overwhelmed. We are created to be in community. So right now, I just want you to breathe. Just breathe. Just breathe. I want you to take your finger, start at the blue dot, and we're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold it for 4. Breathe out for 4. Again, hold for 4. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. That was less than 60 seconds, and you took time to breathe. Set intentions. Be intentional just as you set your agenda for the day. Set agenda and remind yourself when you're going to take care of yourself spiritually, physically, and emotionally. I'm taking a walk. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to talk to a friend. This shows when I visited my ancestors in Texas. After the Emancipation Proclamation and my ancestors were freed, they gave me the name Spencer. So that's the name that my ancestors gave to me. We honor our ancestors when we take time to rest because they didn't have the opportunity. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. Self-care is a revolutionary act, and we're already worthy of rest. Stay connected with me, SheilaPSpencer.com. Contact me at custommadeinspiration@gmail. Instagram is SheSpence, and my Facebook is Custom Made Inspiration. Self-care is your divine right. Recharge your spirit, revive your body, and renew your soul. Self-care is a revolutionary act. Peace and blessings.
And I'm the founder and CEO of BHETC, an organization that aims to bring health equity to women and children of color by transforming the way we think, react, and respond to the psychological traumas in our society. As a double board certified adult, child, and adolescent psychiatrist, health equity, and mindset coach, I use radical storytelling to redefine what it means to be a success for Black women and other women of color by challenging conventional narratives and empowering these women to embrace their unique identities and divine paths. Imagine going to work every day, putting on a brave face despite the weight of injustice, and mistreatment on your shoulders. This is the harsh reality for countless Black women in the workplace. Today, we're going to confront the pervasive abuse of Black women, abuse that goes far beyond narratives of burnout or compassion fatigue or even moral injury. It's time to spark real conversations and real change. Black women are disproportionately experiencing discrimination, microaggressions, and lack of opportunities based on their race and gender. They face unfair criticism, excessive scrutiny, and their authority constantly is undermined, oftentimes in leadership roles in the workplace. Black women are often paid less, promoted less, and forced to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. The cumulative stress and the impact of this abuse is tremendously damaging, mentally, emotionally, and physically. This unjust treatment takes an immense toll on Black women's well-being, their self-esteem, and their sense of belonging. Many struggle with anxiety, depression, PTSD, and other mental health issues as a result. What hasn't been studied enough is if those Black women first experience microaggressions and burnout. I imagine that the constant biological and chemical stress, the biochemical stress on the body damages their physical health, increases the risk for conditions like hypertension and autoimmune disease, as well as the psychological things that we oftentimes discuss as it relates to burnout. We are seeing that too many Black women are driven out of their careers, robbing society of their invaluable talents. I used to say that I was the poster child for microaggressions and burnout. And when I saw another Black woman suffer the same way as me, I would say things to myself like, another one bites the dust. There were times when I would say that it was better to be at the table, because if I wasn't at the table, then I was on the menu. Today, I'm employing Black women to think about what that means to their physiological and emotional health. Now I say, if you're at the table and you're being served disrespect, then I tell you to leave that table. Now, because I'm a Christian, I also recognize that opportunities are bred by the resilience from our ancestors, by the resilience that God has given us and our human dignity. There may be times where God is deciding for you to sit at that table and partake. And he did say that he will make a table in the midst of your enemies. So that time may be. And if you're a woman who are in that situation and you know that you have been called to be in that place, then I would encourage you to eat, enjoy, you're protected. But as we've made strides to bring equity and inclusion to our workplaces and to our communities for the future generation of our children, we are seeing a disheartening backlash against DEI efforts. Across institutions, there are growing movements to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, as well as social emotional learning curricula for future generations and young adults. These regressive pushbacks from divisive us versus them mentalities pits groups against each other. And these fears are also stating that we cannot achieve justice for fear that if we're all treated equal, someone will lose out. We must not allow ourselves to be drawn into the rhetoric of oppositional camps. These false dichotomies only breed more toxic energy to our humanity. Although women, particularly Black women, have burden on their shoulders, has been solely on their shoulders to support these initiatives, DI initiatives, it is time for Black women to prioritize radical self-care. For far too long, we've been expected to work relentlessly without regard for our well-being. and unrealistic demand stemming from racism, patriarchy, and rigid gender roles. It's time to reject those toxic ideologies and uplift a new narrative, one that centers rest, joy, and holistic wealth as a critical factor for health equity. Black women must create space to celebrate their stories in authentic, unrestrained ways. These are sacred spaces to heal together apart from oppressive systems. Cultivate our inner strength through mindfulness, through journaling, and building support networks and storytelling, drawing power from our ancestors' resilience as we ascend from those persistent odds against us. Embrace storytelling and community to find meaning, purpose, process our experiences, and heal collectively. Through our sharing circles, we can have candid dialogues to find meaning and also to uplift each other's voices. Black women can reaffirm our self-worth, their self-worth, and belonging. There's also opportunities for us to rest. Too often, Black women are taught that their value is tied into endlessly productivity, striving, and sacrifice. But this is a lie that fuels burnout. True empowerment means unapologetically prioritizing rest. It means making time for activities that restore the mind, the body, and the spirit, okay? True empowerment means unapologetically prioritizing rest and making time for activities that restore your mind, body, and spirit. When Black people rest, when Black women rest, they can re-energize, tap into their creativity, and gain clarity on identifying and pursuing their highest pursuits, their highest priorities. Rest is not a luxury anymore. It's a revolutionary act of self-preservation in a world that does not value Black women's well-being. Embrace your joy in holistic health. For far too long, contributions in humanity have been undermined and devalued. But you deserve to experience joy and cultivate holistic health. Reclaim your time. Make space for laughter, joy, for savoring the small joys amidst life struggles. These are nutrients for the soul. Surround yourself with a community that uplifts you, believes in your wildest dreams, and celebrates your wins. Holistic wealth goes beyond just finances. It's about rich relationships, spiritual abundance, fulfilling work, and radiant health. My sisters, you have defied all odds to persist and strive, and now it's time to thrive in hostile environments. You are powerful beyond measure. So denounce narratives telling you to subjugate yourself, your humanity, for a society that does not reciprocate. Prioritize rest, fight for equity, shape justice by collective healing and radical self-care. Choose joy and holistic wealth. In doing so, you not only uplift yourself, but blaze trails for generations to come. The world needs your brilliance. We can no longer turn a blind eye to all the inexcusable injustices, but it's time for other people to fight those battles. Rely on the relationships you've built over the years for allies to do the work while you rest, while you cultivate relationships, while you build your community and nurture your community. Together, we can forge a more just and equitable society for all. In conclusion, I want to share that BHETC is all about bringing communities together. If you want to learn more about how to build equity in your life, financial and health equity, and not burn out, you can reach me at Dr. Kim Answers or at www.bhetcgroup.com. You can also email me at drkimgordon@bhetcgroup.com. Thank you, and have a great day. Avoid the burnout and live abundant lives.
Meet PitchDB, the ultimate platform for speakers looking to make their mark on podcasts, conferences, and media outlets. PitchDB provides access to over 3 million platforms, ensuring you find the perfect avenue for your message. With AI integrations, your bios and pitches are tailored uniquely to each opportunity, giving you the edge you need. Join now at pitchdb.com.
Hi there. My name is Dr. Ariane Jennings, and I will be discussing with you the reality of burnout from the perspective of a mental health practitioner. I wanted to share with you all today my own personal story and how I was able to overcome it and manage it. So, like many healthcare professionals, mental health professionals to be exact, the pandemic really impacted and affected all of us to a great capacity. No one expected the pandemic to come, and no one expected it to have the type of impact in the way that it did. Life totally shifted and derailed literally overnight for many of us. We went from serving our clients and helping our clients process their thoughts, their behaviors, their emotions, to also helping our families, our colleagues, and even ourselves process our thoughts, our behaviors, and our emotions around everything that was happening when the pandemic hit. Like everyone in the world, I was greatly impacted as I was also a student working on my doctorate degree at that time. And my family was also impacted as well. Many of my close friends lost family members. Many of my close friends, as well as my family, were also in the hospital and sick with that horrible, horrible disease. It was around that time where I began to experience burnout, where the demand was beginning to get overwhelming, where I wanted to help, but I also was struggling because I didn't know how to help myself. Because I too, again, I wanted to help, but I was struggling because I needed help. It was that time where I realized that I was starting to experience burnout because I was beginning to not like going to work. I still wanted to help, but I began to feel very irritable. I began to have a very negative attitude about going into work. I began to struggle with my work-life balance because at that time as well, we began to have hybrid schedules. And so my work began to come home with me as well. I was working long hours. I was still going to school. I felt like I had very little control over my work and my life. I felt like I could not sleep. I had headaches and I had stomach problems as well. It wasn't until 3 years in that I finally began to realize that I could actually do something about this. And when I met with a therapist myself, my therapist had encouraged me all sorts of things. And some of those things had included, taking a vacation, taking your PTO, using a personal day, practicing mindfulness, practice meditation, do those things for yourself to kind of recenter yourself. And those were very helpful things. But then there was one thing that really struck me. And one of my therapists at that time, my therapist had said to me, maybe it's time for you to start looking at other options. And I never had really considered that before. And so the other options ended up being maybe it was time for me to exit the field in that capacity. And so ultimately, I did. I left the field in that capacity. I left community mental health, and I never looked back. At that time, community mental health was overwhelming for me. In the beginning, it was great, but at the end, because of the pandemic, it served to be too much. And so looking at other options was the best way for me in managing my own burnout. And so with that, I encourage other healthcare workers, other mental health professionals, if any of these signs, if any of these situations or risk factors are resonating with you, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling that you have no control over your schedule, if you're feeling like you're having difficulty managing your work-life balance, if you're feeling as if you're having long hours, if you feel as if your supervisor or your manager does not care, if you're having those signs of mental health, of burnout, if you're having signs of irritability and feeling apathetic, if you're feeling anxious about going to work, if you're having headaches and gastrointestinal problems, then it may be time to look at other options or do whatever that may work best for you and find ways to best manage your burnout, so that you're not going to the emergency room and going to the doctor and getting sick, because burnout can lead to chronic illnesses and it can lead to additional health problems. If you feel as though that this was a helpful conversation for you, and if you would like more information, please feel free to use the contact information on the screen. I would love to talk more to anyone who's interested. And thank you so much for listening. Thanks.
Is there someone in your life that you will never forgive, no matter what? Someone who, if you walked by them, you wouldn't even spit on them if they were on fire. Because what they did to you was so awful that there's just no turning back, no matter what. My name is Marcia Narayan Weldon, and I'm here to tell you that even though almost everyone has that person in their life, everyone and everything is forgivable. You don't believe me? I'm going to tell you a little story. I met him in a bar in the Virgin Islands. He was charming. He was handsome. I was in my 20s. I'd been working 80 to 100 hours a week as a high-powered lawyer, making almost $200,000 a year, and I needed a break. He was actually on a first date with another woman when I met him, but he was so handsome and charming that I gave him my number. He was so handsome and charming that even though he got into a bar fight the night that I met him, I still chose to spend the rest of my vacation with him. Blame it on the alcohol. He was so handsome and charming that even with my 2 Ivy League degrees and my strict West Indian upbringing, I invited him to move back to New York with me because I missed him too much. Blame that on my bad boy complex. And before you judge me, the woman he dated before me, she owned an island. That's how handsome and charming he was. But before you think I'm crazy, I want you to know that he could light up a room with a smile. He made everyone feel special. He was one of the most intelligent, generous, kind, charismatic, loving, funny people you could ever meet until he drank. He also suffered from bipolar disorder. and the highs and lows could be sudden, fierce, and unfortunately for me, violent. So like that first red flag of the bar fight, there were so many others. For years, including my entire pregnancy, even after we broke up, I slept with a knife under my bed. And over the years we spent together, I called the police repeatedly, but that was never a deterrent. On one occasion, half a dozen New York City police officers came to my home, and he told them to shoot him out, otherwise known as suicide by cop. The next day, I picked up my baby, moved back to Miami where I grew up. But even though we were no longer had that connection and that contact, the connection from his heart to mine through our son literally almost killed me. And though it looked like I had everything together on the outside, I was in a constant state of simmering anger, resentment, and terror. If I saw a certain look in an actor's eyes when he was threatening a woman on a movie screen, I felt like I was in imminent danger. So over the years, my experience with my son's father caused two seemingly irreconcilable reactions. I became hard-hearted and cold. I didn't trust anyone to get close to me. I'd also experienced abuse from a family friend as a child, and those memories would come flooding back to me seemingly at random. But of course, there was a connection. So I grew this protective shell around my heart so that no one could enter. Not friends, not lovers, not coworkers. How many of you have shut off your pain and let that shut you off from the world? I know I'm not the only person who's closed up her heart. But then I fell in love with a wonderful man. My heart accidentally opened up to a non-stranger. He accepted me with my flaws and my fears. He accepted my son with his mental illness that he'd inherited from his father. And it was perfect. Until it wasn't. A few years after we got married, he filed for divorce right at the start of the COVID pandemic. And the pressure of dealing with my son and his hospitalizations for his mental illnesses was just too much for him and our marriage to bear. And I didn't realize it. But all this collective trauma was slowly and silently killing me. My blood pressure was off the charts no matter how much I ate, what I ate, how much I exercised, how many times I saw my therapist. Years after leaving my son's father and dealing with the personal issues landed me in the hospital 6 times in 6 years for what doctors thought were heart attacks or strokes. Losing my marriage, trying to keep my son from going into yet another mental hospital during COVID, being isolated from everyone, led me to what I thought was my aha moment. So like a lot of people during the pandemic, I chose to go inward to make sense of a senseless world where everything I knew and loved was dying. I became more serious about meditation, mindfulness, and other healing modalities. I went to a hypnotherapist and then I learned it myself. I became a master in neuro-linguistic programming so that I could reprogram my own mind. But even after all that, I was still going to the hospital with heart attack scares. Nothing changed until a conversation I had with one of my spiritual advisors who told me that my heart would continue to attack me until I learned forgiveness. Well, that was a no-go for me. I knew that the issues with my heart weren't physical. The hardness in my heart was because of my justifiable rage and my anger that I had toward the people who hurt me and let me down when I hadn't done anything wrong. So 62% of American adults say they need forgiveness in their lives. I just wasn't one of those people. In my mind, there was a clear right and a clear wrong. And if you were wrong, you needed to admit it, atone publicly, suffer, and make sure it never happened again. I met a priest in Rwanda. That's a country where 800,000 people were murdered in 100 days in a genocide. He talked to me about forgiveness. I just wanted to know what kind of hell my son's father was going to suffer in. But I also knew that it was no coincidence that the issues that landed me in the hospital related to my heart, where my anger was, and my head, where I was constantly ruminating and reliving those painful memories. My feelings and my thoughts were literally killing me. I needed to save my life because I was too cute and too young to end up in the stroke ward again. So here's what I learned about anger and forgiveness. Your brain scan actually looks completely different when you're angry, sad, or happy. Your emotions tangibly affect your brain. Anger and hostility are linked to a higher risk of heart disease and poorer health for people with existing heart conditions. And chronic anger puts you into that chronic flight or flight mode, which floods your system with cortisol and results in changes in your heart rate and your blood pressure. This also leads to an increased risk of depression, heart disease, diabetes. So I knew something had to change. I was never going to get an apology. I wasn't going to get a do-over of my childhood or my marriage. And being angry and smug was eating away in my insides like battery acid. Forgiveness can reduce stress, lower blood pressure, lower your heart attack risk, lower your cholesterol, improve your sleep, reduce your pain, and reduce your anxiety levels. So the why was obvious. But how do you actually forgive someone who doesn't deserve it? First, it's important to differentiate between forgiveness is and forgiveness is not. It's not justice. It's not reconciliation. It's not weakness. It's not letting somebody get away with it. It's not a call for reconciliation. It's not even the reward or a byproduct of an apology. And you can still seek justice and forgive. It's a choice, and forgiveness needs to be taught and practiced. So the first step is simply deciding to forgive. To achieve emotional forgiveness, a person has to let go and stop dwelling on being wronged. And it's about offering something positive toward that person who hurt you, whether it's empathy, compassion, or even understanding. So first, I focused on self-love, and I spoke to myself the way I would speak to someone I loved. I looked at myself in the mirror daily and I said affirmations that were specific to me. I never passed a mirror without saying silently or aloud, "I love you, gorgeous," with a smile. And at first, I didn't believe it. But I never stopped, and not even to this day. Using my NLP training, I recorded my own voice with affirmations I fell asleep to at night because in a state of sleep, my conscious mind couldn't try to talk me out of what I was saying. And after I focused like a laser on loving and forgiving myself, I was ready to forgive others. Not for them, but for me. I started using the Hawaiian practice of Ho'oponopono every day. Every day I picked out a different person and put them in my mind's eyes and said, "I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you." I forgave my son's father, even though he would call me minutes in a rage, even after I talked to him. I forgave my ex-husband, even though he didn't ask for it. But first, I asked for forgiveness for the crazy life he'd been thrust into right after we got married. I forgave the family friend who abused me, even as he denied it to himself and to me. And now I forgive very easily. It doesn't mean that I forget, but it's now an automatic reflex because I've trained myself to forgive no matter what. And here's how I know it worked. In March 2022, my son's father died from alcohol poisoning. For years, I had secretly prayed for his death so I could finally have some peace and a solid night's sleep. But I had long forgiven him before he died. So I flew to his family home. I wrote a testimony to him for his program, for his memorial. I picked the pictures and I did it in love. I focused on the good that he brought to my life. I even spread some of his ashes over my balcony. The ex-husband, he and I are hiking mountains together all over the world as friends. It's my mission to spread the word of love and forgiveness and unconditional love. I've written a book chapter about it. So the forgiveness practice, it's not toxic positivity. Rather, think about a way to get rid of the toxic anger that's going to lead you to a premature death. And this is so important to me that if you sign up to my email list, I'll provide you with a complimentary 20-minute laser coaching session on forgiveness or any other topic. Here's my forgiveness formula. Forget what you think forgiveness is supposed to be. O, own your own role, if any, and own your feelings. And think about whether you need to apologize first. R, resist that need to be right or to get an apology. G, go at your own pace because forgiveness takes time. I, investigate non-traditional tools to learn forgiveness. V, vanquish that victim mentality. And E, enjoy the release and the ease that comes from letting it all go.
Imagine a life where success isn't about just the achievements that you rack up, but about the lasting sense of fulfillment and well-being that you experience along the way. Well, that is what we are here to explore today. My name is Lavista Jones, and together we are going to touch on how to achieve sustainable success by balancing both ambition and your well-being. In our fast-paced world, it is so very easy to get caught up in the pursuit of success. We're constantly bombarded with messages that tell us to hustle harder, achieve more, to pledge allegiance to busyness. And while ambition is most definitely a beautiful thing, it can sometimes come at a cost, and that is our well-being. Far too many of us have experienced the burnout that traditionally comes in the form of, as they say, paying the cost to be the boss, which comes with pushing ourselves way too hard. We consistently neglect our own needs, and we ultimately sacrifice our health in the name of ambition. But it doesn't have to be this way. There is an intriguing relationship between ambition and well-being. And these two aspects are not adversaries. In fact, they can be very powerful allies on our journey towards success. So, how do we shift to make these two play well together and create the cornerstone of sustainable success? I'm so glad that you asked. First thing is self-awareness and boundaries. So, making the shift towards balancing ambition and well-being starts with self-awareness and intentionality. Imagine, if you will, right? We live in the age of DC Comics and Marvel Comics coming to life. Imagine that you have a superpower that guides you through life's challenges. That is your self-awareness. It's about knowing your strengths and acknowledging your weaknesses and setting healthy boundaries to protect your well-being. And so if self-awareness is your superpower, then boundaries are like the guardrails on the highway of life. Boundaries help you stay the course and prevent you from veering off into burnout territory. Setting boundaries isn't about building walls, though. It's about creating a framework that supports your well-being while allowing you to achieve your highest potential. Second thing is reimagining success. So, sustainable success is not just about achieving a certain destination. It should also include decisions about how to live your life in a way that brings fulfillment and joy. And you will shift towards making those types of decisions when you first learn to redefine your value beyond productivity alone. You have to resist the ideation that you have to earn your place, that somehow your worth is predicated on how and what it is that you produce instead of you just having intrinsic value on your own. When it comes to success specifically, it is beyond time to stop shooting on yourself and give yourself permission to be okay wanting what you actually want. Define success in alignment with your personal values, your goals, and your priorities that support a deep sense of purpose and fulfillment. Do not be afraid to say no to things that do not align with your values or priorities. Third thing is to define self-care for yourself. Rather than striving for this perfect balance, let's reframe towards work-life integration, right? So I want you to imagine a life where your professional and your personal pursuits actually come together and complement each other instead of competing. This particular shift is going to be dependent on you defining self-care in a deeply resonant way for yourself and then prioritizing your own care. And that looks like making time for activities that bring you joy and relaxation and allowing yourself to find joy in the ordinary. And remember, it is okay to take breaks and to recharge when you need to. So in conclusion, finding balance between ambition and well-being, it's not always easy, but I can promise you that it is worth the consistent effort to make the necessary shifts to actually achieve it. By strengthening your self-awareness and boundaries, defining success on your own terms, and prioritizing your self-care, you can create a life that supports your ambitions and your well-being. It's not an either-or decision, it's a both and. So thank you for joining me today. And remember, you are worthy of success and well-being, and you deserve to live a life that reflects that truth. I write in length about the shifts needed to live life on your own terms because you are no longer willing to sacrifice yourself in pursuit of the work that you love doing in my latest book, The Boss Shift. And if that message resonates with you, I would love to give you access to the first chapter of that book absolutely for free. Simply head over to lavistajones.com/shift to download the first chapter and start embracing the shift today. Again, that is lavistajones.com/shift. And until next time, take care of yourself.
Hey there, my name is Julie Nixon and I am the social work expat. I am a social worker and a certified hypnotist. I have 15 years experience as a social worker, both in the field and in administrative social work. I am here today as a social worker, a certified hypnotist, and as a Black woman, talking about navigating toxic jobs and preserving our health. I will go over what a toxic job is, how it affects our health, and provide some practical, actionable techniques you can use to preserve your health in toxic jobs. What is a toxic job? There is an entire government agency, OSHA, that takes care of, or is supposed to take care of, dangerous workplaces. However, a toxic job can be more insidious. There are 3 categories that I place toxic jobs in. The first one is that a toxic job takes more than it gives. The main purpose for jobs is for income. And then if we move forward into careers, it can be for advancement, it can be for good of the world, but the number one issue with a toxic job is that it takes more than it gives. It takes more of your time than it gives. It takes more of your energy than it gives. It takes more of your well-being, happiness, and fulfillment than it gives. The second category of a toxic job is that it is psychologically unsafe. This is especially true of the workplace for Black women. From microaggressions to outright bullying, workplaces are toxic for Black women. Constantly having to make explanations about an entire ethnic group when we're one person, having to smile all day because if we don't, we are seen as a threat. Making sure that our tone is acceptable in the workplace. Having our ideas dismissed, then later repackaged and given credit to another coworker. I could go on and on. The third category of a toxic job is that it hinders your growth and advancement. Many toxic jobs, especially for Black women, will keep us in particular roles and positions and not advance us no matter how much work we do and no matter how many credentials we have. Time and again, In my many years of working, I have seen people who are less qualified but are not Black move ahead in workplaces when it is clearly unearned. This is definitely part of a toxic job situation. How do toxic jobs affect Black women's health? Toxic jobs affect Black women's mental health from the anxiety and stress of everyday microaggressions to demoralization from the lack of validation of our good work, to mental fatigue because there are always additional tasks that are given to us in the workplace, especially when we are seen as competent. Depression sets in the longer we are in toxic jobs, and this affects every aspect of our lives. We spend the majority of our waking life at work. And when we are in toxic job situations, it bleeds over into every aspect of our lives to our detriment. When we move from the mental harm that toxic jobs can cause us as Black women, it can then manifest as physical ailments, chronic diseases, and other symptoms. Racist and toxic jobs can affect our physical health in multiple ways. Black women have disproportionately higher rates of heart disease, diabetes, infertility, fibroids, hair loss, and neurological diseases. Many times, Black women's symptoms of depression will turn into physical ailments or somatic ailments that include headaches, backaches, general fatigue, and muscle body pain. If we remain in toxic jobs long enough, that psychological and physical damage to us can move all the way to the chromosomal level. Studies have shown that exposure to microaggressions affect Black women at the chromosomal level. That means that racist and toxic jobs actually affect every part of our bodies down to our DNA. How can we preserve our health while keeping our income in Babylon? I have offered 3 ways. First, we can get support. A supportive, loving, understanding circle of friends, relatives, and supporters are integral to our health in all ways, especially when we are in a Babylon work situation. Find like-minded, supportive, uplifting people to help you be there just as presence and also as support for each other in these situations and times. The second way that you can preserve your health while working in Babylon is to get rest. Many of us do not get enough rest. That includes sleep, but it also includes rest for the mind, rest from being in threatening environments. That can be taking a break in your car, taking a walk after an especially difficult meeting or interaction, or just listening to some music that clears the air after a very hard and difficult day in Babylon. Your body and your mind will thank you for the rest. That includes sleep. Adults need at least 6 hours of sleep each night. And it really resets our minds and bodies. And sleep and rest helps clear out unhealthy and damaged cells. The third way that we can preserve our health while in toxic job situations is to get out of the toxic job. We all work because we need the income. Make sure that you keep your resume up to date. Make sure that you have your running shoes ready. Your support network can also be your network to help you escape from a difficult manager, an especially taxing job situation. Just know that you are valuable. Your skills are necessary and are wanted in many different jobs. You have options, and if you are in a toxic job situation, you can always get out. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my talk today. I am offering BSN's attendees a free relaxation meditation. You can scan the QR code on the screen or go to talk.ac/socialworkexpat and you can enter the code SWEBSN24 to claim your relaxation meditation. This might be part of your newfound rest practice. And if you would like to follow me on social media, I am on all platforms as Social Work Expat. I wish you joy, freedom, peace, rest, and safety. Thank you.
Wow. Words cannot express how transformative this time has been with you all. I literally have pages and pages of notes here, and I hope you do too. But I just want you to do me a favor. Promise me that you will not leave this information here. Promise me that you won't set your notes aside and never look at them again. Because remember, we're all about action here. So I need for you to take all of the tools, the insights, the knowledge that you learned today and implement it this very week. And while it's unfortunate that our time is coming to a close, please do not forget to like, to comment, and to subscribe and stay connected with Black Speakers Network and all of the amazing resources and things that they have coming up. Stay connected with me and every single speaker that we had here today. And my final words is to leave you with one of the mottos here at Black Speakers Network, which is to speak up because your audience awaits. Be blessed.